Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for those who are watching us in a different time zone. My name is Joseph Moravino, and this is All Money, New Money Africa, where we impact communities by sharing knowledge to income. And my question to you today is, how well do you understand your soil? Just like the way you understand your body type, you choose a dress code that suits you well. Like if you are blessed with a tummy, you cannot put on a crop top. And if you're not blessed, to have a figure 8 or a nice figure that suits a booty short, then you don't have to put on a booty short. Same applies to soil. Soil, it fits different crops depending on the quality that it has. So my question is, how well do you understand your soil? And does soil have an impact on what you're supposed to grow in your farm? Well, while having that in mind, my question is, with the project that we are about to initiate about the yellow beans, will the type of soil profile that we have be able to sustain that type of a crop? Because we might decide, okay, we have looked for the capital that is the 750 shillings or maybe the 1,000 shilling that we can get from the lemon selling, but then we end up not having the right soil profile for that crop. So this is one of the main problems that also villagers usually face when it comes to farming, because most of the times they usually don't have enough knowledge on how to do soil profiling, and at the same time to understand the quality of their soils and with the type of investment that they want to put into those farms. So you find that someone decides, okay, they are going to do maize planting, but the soil itself, it might not have enough nitrogen to support them growing, which you end up having very poor harvest. And that's why if you have the knowledge of understanding how to intercrop, which is usually advised, I'm not saying that I'm an expert, but I've done my research to understand that intercropping is very important, because one crop supports the other in terms of nutrients. Because if you plant maize together with any legume, you help it with nitrogen, because the legumes usually fix nitrogen into the soil. Now, for the case of our yellow beans, our soil, it's very porous. Our soil, it's porous because it's a sandy soil. And as for sandy soil, most of the times you find that it drains water very well. And aside from that, it anchors the plant also in a good way. But sometimes if you find that the plants are of shallow roots, then they end up being taken down whenever there's a strong winds, or maybe there's heavy rains, especially if the topography of the land is not that good. Like for the case of our land, you find that it drains in a certain direction. So by draining in that direction, it means that there are some crops that they can be planted on the upper side of the topography, as compared to the other side where it's a little bit lower. And without that understanding, you might end up incurring losses, especially when it comes to planting some certain crops which have shallow roots on the major part of the slope, which they end up being carried away by the water whenever it rains. So that is one of the things that I have taken into account, especially when I'm trying to initiate this project. Remember, the program is All Money, New Money Africa, where we share knowledge to income. And by sharing this knowledge to the youth and community in the villages, we impact them on the way they are going to be thinking and the way they are going to be reasoning, because opportunities are everywhere. But the difference is the mindset, the way you think, the way you reason, and the way you understand how to work around the economies. Because economies in the villages are totally different from the ones in the urban cities. The people in the villages, they still live in communal based as compared to people in the cities, which makes it even easy for them in the village because let's say for instance you have a small shamba that you intend to start and grow your seeds, because maybe you don't have seeds and you intend maybe in future to do large scale farming, then you can borrow some few seeds from fellow villagers or maybe family members, and then you can grow your seed collection from there, so that in the future, if you are in a position to lease maybe 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, you can be able to start that farming process with cutting some of the expenditures, especially when it comes to seeds, because if you don't have seeds, it will cost you even more to produce on a large scale in terms of a certain crop. Now, for this case, we need to understand that some advantages that are in the villages, like social capital, they lack in the cities. And also in the villages, people do have some very useful resource that usually people overlook it, and that is time. People say time is money, but what you don't understand is it's literally money. How comes? Because you can come up with an idea. Let's say for instance you want to start a seedling bed, and if you have a seedling bed, let's say it's a fruit seedlings, or maybe let's say it's wood seedlings. If you're in the urban area, you might have the capital, but you might not be in the position to start that thing. Why? Because you are very busy. You are occupied from 8 to 5, and when you get back home, you are busy. But when you are in the village, you have all the time, because whether you do it or not, you'll still be free roaming around in the village, doing absolutely nothing, because maybe you are not thinking, or maybe the jobs that are there, they are very little. So because you have this time as a resource, then utilize it. Because in the village, most of the times you find that people are just moving around and with no any direction. So if you have that change in mindset and start looking at a bigger picture and seeing resources in the villages that are readily available, then you'll be ahead of 1,000 or 2,000 youths that are in the village. And for instance, let's say for example, you need to start a seedling bed, or maybe a seedling business. If you move around in your village, you'll find those matured trees that are already fruiting. Let's say for instance, if it's a Java palm, let's say if it's instance these wood plants, most of the times they fruit, and those seeds, they just fall down on the ground and nobody cares about them. They just end up being there. So if you are able to go around, like if you're just free because you have time with you, if you go around, collect these seeds, and then come back home and prepare a very good nursery, and then after that plant them, within a duration of time, let's say 3 months or 4 months or 5, you'll be able to have some seedlings that you can be able to sell and have an income. So it becomes a source of income, and at the same time you can utilize that as a resource to come up with another program or another investment that you intend to do on a larger scale, or maybe you start something and then you grow it as it continues. You see, those are the advantages that people overlook, especially when it comes to the village side. And I usually see it and I get fascinated, because I've gone around the country and I've seen a lot of people coming up with good ideas, especially in those Western countries, Western regions and central regions. You find that someone has a very small piece of land, but they've partitioned it properly. They have a section whereby they have some fruits, they have some vegetables, they have some seedlings, they have some chicken. In that small piece of land, people have come up with innovative ideas, and they can be able to employ themselves for the long run. Now, the idea that capital is the hindering factor, we have a coexistence of totally different things within a farm that can work together. For instance, if your intention is to start a poultry farm and you don't have the capital, there's no need for you to start directly going to the poultry farm. Why don't you start with a seedling which is costly, like 100% costly free? It just requires your availability, and through that you can come up with a selling program. Maybe during the tree planting day every year, you can come up with organizations, or you can work with the county governments, and then you start planting these trees in institutions, schools, hospitals, and designated forest areas. And through that, you can come up with capital. Through that capital, you can buy a chicken or two, and then from it, you can grow that venture slowly by slowly as you continue. Because there is no enterprise that can grow without cash flow. Cash flow is very important, because without cash flow, then you cannot buy feeds frequently. You cannot be able to sustain any other program that you intend to start if you don't have a frequent cash flow. And for that to happen, then you need to have one source that is very good in terms of cash flow. For instance, the seedlings, or maybe you can decide, okay, let me do the yellow beans farming, let me do maize farming within a small space within your shamba, and then you can grow it slowly by slowly, because wealth is created with patience and it's created with structure. If you don't have structure and you don't have patience, that is time, then most of the times you might end up not having the outcome that you intend to have in the long run. So this is Old Money, New Money Africa, where we impact the youth and community so that you can build wealth, understand how economies work, and keep on growing as a person and as a community. This is Old Money, New Money Africa. Subscribe, like, and share. Cheers.